Good morning, one and all. Okay, so today we'll be discussing a topic on network authentication protocol. Okay, that is Kerberos. Okay, Kerberos. Then, as you can see it in the slide, key distribution and certification. Okay, in my last lecture, we have already discussed the different scenarios of sharing symmetric key as well as a public key. Okay, so public key we have discussed four different methods of sharing a public key. Okay, in that one of them is public key announcement, and then public key available directory, okay, public key authority, and a certificate authority, right? These four were the methods we discussed using which we will be distributing a public key, right? So just look into the slide. In case of public key encryption model, the authenticity of the public key of each partner in the communication is ensured by a certificate authority. Okay, so this was the fourth method which we have discussed in the public key distribution. Okay, so the authenticity of the respective person or the entity will be ensured by the CA. What is CA? Certificate authority. Okay, if you remember the process of certification authority, so every person who wants to communicate with the other person, he need to get a certificate first. Okay, he need to get a certificate issued by the certificate authority. Then only using that certificate, the nodes can communicate with each other. Okay, so authenticity has been taken care by certificate authority in this process. Okay, in case of symmetric key encryption, the authenticity of the common key is ensured by KDC, key distribution center. Okay, so if you remember again our key distribution scenario, we have discussed already the concept of key distribution scenario, wherein the two persons are sharing a key, symmetric key, using a trusted person called KDC, or the trusted center called KDC. Okay, using which two person can claim their identity or authenticity to each other. Okay, so this we have already studied. Now, next, Kerberos. What is Kerberos? As we have mentioned it as, it's a network authentication protocol. Means the person need to prove their identity during their communication. Okay, and how do they do it? That we will be discussing. The Kerberos protocol is designed to provide reliable authentication over open and insecure networks where communication between the host belong to it may be intercepted. Okay, so this protocol, Kerberos protocol, it'll provide us the reliable authentication. Okay, using this one can prove their identity with the other person. Okay, the other person, and hence they are proving their identity, and then they start communicating with each other. Okay, and this technique was developed at MIT in the late 1980, and it represents an authentication service based on symmetric key encryption on a KDC, which is just the third part. Okay, we have already discussed using KDC how do we share symmetric key among two persons. Okay, it also based on that. KDC consists of two parts logically separated, AS and TGS. Okay, so this notation you please remember, like this notation like AS means what? Authentication server. Okay, AS means authentication server, and TGS means ticket granting server. Okay, so going down the line we'll be using the notation, so please remember the notations. Okay, AS, it meant authentication server, okay, which proves the identity of the particular node, so that is done by AS. And what is TGS? TGS is the ticket granting server. Okay, as the name itself tells, it provides a ticket for the client to get the request from a particular server. Okay, so that is TGS. Again, we will be discussing it further. Okay, please note down the notation. AS is authentication server and TGS is ticket granting server. Okay, so KDS consisting of these two parts, right? Okay, going ahead. What is AS and what is TGS? So that we will look into. Okay, AS is responsible for handling a login request from a user. Okay, AS, authentication server, what it does a login it handles a login request from a particular node, okay, who wants to involve himself in the communication. Okay, and the AS maintains a database of secret keys. Authentication server, okay, which is a part of KDC, it maintains a database of secret keys of all the nodes in its network. It maintains the secret key of all the nodes in the network, each entity of the network. Okay, whether a client or a server, it shares the secret key only to itself and to the AES. Okay, as we already know, secret key is meant to keep secret between itself and other than itself, only with the authentication server. Only at two places that secret can be kept privately. One with himself and other with authentication server. Okay, that's how authentication server it maintain a database of all the secret keys which comes in its network. Okay, now setting up the secure channel handled by TGS. So now what TGS will do? TGS will it sets up a channel between a client and a server. Okay, that is issued by TGS. TGS hands out special message known as tickets. Okay, TGS it hands out special messages known as tickets. So that ticket is nothing but a TGS, we call it as, that are used to convince a server that the client is really who he claims to be. Okay, so we'll be seeing this further, how TGS will be generated by the server and how client can make use of it to get a service from the server. Okay, a ticket is unforgeable, unreplayable, authenticated object. Okay, the ticket issued by a KDC. Okay, so no one can simply generate and issue the ticket to anyone. Okay, the ticket can be issued only by the KDC. Okay, and it is unforgeable. No one can forge the ticket as because of using the private keys and all. Okay, it is unforgeable. It is not replayable. Okay, a ticket cannot be duplicated and sent to the multiple person. Okay, it is not replayable either. And authenticated, okay, means the person can prove his identity by sending a ticket. Okay, it is encrypted data structure naming a user and a service that the user is allowed to obtain. Okay, it is also contain a time value to some control, like some timestamp also added with the ticket. Okay, just to know the validity of the particular session. Okay, so before going in the further description, let me show you one small video, one small clip, okay, of the operation of Kerberos. Okay, how exactly the Kerberos works. Okay, so you people please let me know. I'll be share the screen again. Just a second, I'll stop sharing it and I'll be sharing that video. Give me a second, I will do that. Okay, again, Jyoti can tell me whether it is visible. This video is visible. Jyoti, is this visible? The video clip
Yes,
is
sir.
visible. Okay. Okay. Now,
Yes, sir, it is visible.
now I'll be playing this video clip. If it is not audible, you can interrupt me and tell me back. If it is audible to you, then you can just watch it carefully. Okay, let me begin with.
Managing users' passwords is probably one of the most frustrating parts of a system administrator's job, especially when the user has passwords defined in many places for many services. And what about protecting those passwords? Even encrypted passwords can often be cracked. Well, that's why the folks at MIT developed Kerberos, to make it easy for administrators to manage passwords by storing them centrally, enhance security by ensuring no clear text passwords are transmitted, and allowing users to access different services with the same password. Having passwords in a central location will obviously make them easier to administer. But how do our services authenticate users when they don't know the user's passwords? Why don't we just limit ourselves to using protocols that encrypt the passwords? That's safe, right? Well, yes, encryption is a good way of protecting our authentication, but consider the following scenario. Our hero is relaxing at his local cafe, which conveniently offers free wireless internet access. When he boots his computer, It makes a DHCP request for several configuration parameters, including the IP address of a DNS server. An evildoer at the same cafe happens to be running a DHCP server on his computer. This DHCP server distributes information pointing clients to his fraudulent DNS server. This imposter DNS server has fake entries for many common email servers, all pointing directly to, you guessed it, the evildoer's mail server. You may know this is spoofing, and here's why it's bad. If our hero tries to log into his mail server with a non-Kerberized name and password combination, the hijacker's mail server probably won't be able to log him on, but it can harvest his name and password to be used for other fraudulent purposes. Even if the password is encrypted, chances are the poacher can decrypt it pretty easily using free tools from the internet. So what we need is a way to keep passwords off the network in the first place. And that's exactly what Kerberos does. Let's take a look at how Kerberos protects your passwords by keeping them off the network. And at the same time, makes management easier by centralizing the storage of the passwords. To begin with, the name Kerberos gives a clue to the way Kerberos works. In Greek mythology, Kerberos was the vicious three-headed dog that guarded the gates of Hades. In network authentication, Kerberos creates a realm with 3 players that collectively guard your network. The Kerberos client, the Kerberized service, and the Key Distribution Center, or KDC. We'll see how these 3 players work together to provide secure authentication with all the passwords stored in a single location and not transmit clear text passwords during the authentication process. And from the user point of view, access to each service is transparent. In fact, the user can access all the services by logging in only once. Users and services in a Kerberos realm are known as principals, and each has its own secret encryption key stored on the KDC. The system administrator creates these keys, and they are shared only by the principal and the KDC. Each principal trusts that a packet encrypted with this key must come from the KDC. The KDC also has a private key that it shares with no one. This key ensures the integrity of the authentication process. Here's how it works. We'll use blue for the user's key, red for the services key, and green for the KDC's key. It's easy to see that the KDC can encrypt a packet with the user's key, and then have the user decrypt it with the same key. The trick is getting encrypted sessions between the user and the services. Remember, they don't have any permanent shared keys. Well, how does the KDC do it? The critical piece to remember is that each principal trusts that anything encrypted with its private key comes from the KDC. So if the user can present the service with a packet encrypted with the service's private key, the service knows that this user was authenticated by the KDC and can be trusted. Let's take a look at how the whole process works, beginning with the initial logon. It's morning, and our user has just logged into his computer and entered his username and password into the login screen. The packet traveling to the KDC contains the user's name, but does not contain the password. That's the security problem we're trying to solve. This packet is a request for a ticket-granting ticket, or TGT. You need a valid ticket to access a resource because it proves your identity. The user principal will eventually use this TGT to receive tickets for all of the services it wants to access, and the person sitting at the computer will never see it happen. As part of the security in Kerberos, tickets do expire, so they're always time-stamped. The KDC looks in its user principal database and confirms that this user is indeed a valid user. The KDC then creates the ticket-granting ticket. This contains the user's name, the KDC name, the client's IP address, and a new key called a session key. The session key is a time-sensitive encryption key that the KDC generates just for this session. We have to change those session keys periodically in case an intruder captures our packets and tries to decrypt our encryption key. Then all of this information is encrypted using the KDC's private key, so the client never actually sees the contents of the TGT. The KDC then sends back a packet containing two things: the ticket granting ticket and another copy of the session key, which is encrypted with the user's private key. The client uses its private key based on the password that the user typed in when he sat down this morning to log in to open the service key. So what's the point of sending the client a TGT when the client is unable to read its contents? Well, watch what the client does when it wants to request a service. The client first creates an authenticator. This includes the client's name, the IP address of his computer, and the time. It encrypts the authenticator with the session key it just received from the KDC. Then it creates a packet that contains the still unopened TGT, the authenticator, and the name of the requested service, and sends this packet to the KDC. When the KDC receives this packet, it can decrypt the TGT, and knowing that it can't have been falsified because it hasn't been opened, the KDC uses the TGT to check the information in the authenticator. Now that the KDC is ready to trust the identity of the user, the KDC can send a service ticket to the client. The service ticket is particular to the requested service and only works for this user for a set period of time. The service ticket includes the user name, the service name, the IP address from the client computer, and a new session key. Then the KDC encrypts this ticket with the service's private key. Note that the client does not have the service's private key and cannot modify the contents of this ticket. The KDC places a copy of the new session key and the service ticket into a packet and encrypts the whole thing with the first session key it shared with the user, and the KDC sends this back to the client. The client decrypts the packet and uses the new session key to encrypt a new authenticator and sends it to the service. The service uses its private key to open the service ticket and is guaranteed that the ticket came from the KDC because no one else has that key. Then it uses the new session key it finds there to open the authenticator. The service uses the information in the service ticket to verify the information in the authenticator. Now that it has verified the identity of the user, the service sends back an acknowledgement and the user is authenticated to the service. It's important to understand that at no point in this process could anybody learn the user's password, including services. This not only protects the password from packet capture on the network, but also from being harvested by spoofing servers, especially on public wireless networks. So now, thanks to Kerberos, we just solved 3 problems. We have more secure authentication, simplified management of passwords, and the convenience of single sign-on.
Okay. So that was the clip on Kerberos. Let me share my PPT again. Just a second.
Managing users' passwords is probably one of the most frustrating parts of a system administrator's job.
Give me a second. Okay, I hope my screen is visible. Okay, it's clearly mentioned in that particular clip how Kerberos works. Now let me directly take you to the scenario. Okay, so KDC, so there were a few important factors like all passwords have been maintained in the centralized server. Okay, so password is not maintained at the respective local machines. Rather, Kerberos will help us in maintaining the password at this centrally, okay, at the central database. So that's how we use Kerberos, which can help us in password management, okay, as well as in authentication, in authenticating the people. Okay, so now again let us see the same thing. Let us see the same process which has been discussed in the clip, okay, as a part of this process using the slides. Okay, as you can see here, KDC, it contains two logical parts. One is AS, that is authentication server, and the other is TGS, which is a ticket granting server. Okay, ticket granting server will issue a ticket, that is TGS. Again, it is a ticket granting service. Okay, authentication server, it issues the ticket called TGT. It is ticket granting ticket. Okay, so we'll be seeing it further again. Okay, as you see this picture, it is, these people looks like Italians, right? These people look like Italian people, right? That's how they communicate. They communicate between themselves in the Italian language. If any of you present here in this session, if you know the Italian language, then probably you can understand what these people are talking. Okay, like now Alice is, so here the first one is Alice. This person is Alice. This person is Bob. Okay, and Alice wants to communicate with Bob, or Alice wants to get some service from Bob. Okay, and this KDC, in the KDC we have two people again. As we have said, there are two logical parts. One is AS and the other is TGS. Okay, now let us see the conversation or communication between all these roles. So first, Alice wants to get a TGT, ticket granting ticket, to prove his identity. Okay, to do that, what Alice will do? Alice will request for it. Okay, request for it to the KDC. What is that? Sono Alice mi serve an TGT. So it's the Italian language again. So if anyone of you know the Italian language, it says, "I'm Alice, I need a TGT." Okay, Sono Alice mi serve an TGT. It means I'm Alice, I need a TGT. So Alice said, myself is Alice, I need a TGT. Okay, so then authentication server will reply back to that request. Okay, like this: echo L TGT, say Rashi decrypt Patrolo. It means here the TGT you can decrypt it. Okay, Alice is requesting for TGT. Okay, and now TGT KDC will replying back with that TGT. Okay, and now in sending the TGT, again as you see in the picture, all the users are maintaining keys. Okay, like they are shown in blue color, like you in blue color key. If you remember the clip, okay, Alice is maintaining its own private key, which in blue color shown in the clip. Okay, it is maintained by you. Okay, and even KDC is maintaining its own private key. It's in green color shown in the clip. Okay, KDC is also maintaining its own private key, and even Bob is maintaining its own private key. So here Bob is a server. Okay, here Bob is server who will provide a service. Okay, which is probably in a red color. Okay, that is S, red color. So every user maintaining their own private key, and all the private keys of these users has been shared with KDC privately. Okay, even KDC will be knowing the private key of all these people, right? So Alice is requesting for TGT. Okay, by encrypting that request using her own private key, and KDC will know that private key, so KDC can easily decrypt the request, and KDC will be responding to that request by sending a TGT. Okay, now that TGT will be again encrypted by KDC's private key. Okay, the TGT will be encrypted by KDC's private key, and the KDC's private key is not known to anyone. KDC's private key is known to KDC himself. Okay, so even this Alice and Bob, they don't know about KDC's private key. Okay, so KDC will be encrypting its service, generate a TGT and send it to Alice. Okay, and then Alice, the third step. Okay, Alice will send a TGT. Okay, so the same TGT. It will simply forward the TGT along with authenticator, okay, along with its own information, authenticator uh, to the TGS, okay, to get the TGS. Now what is the message? TGT Oglio unservice ticket. Now what it means again, TGT, I want a service ticket, okay, the meaning is Ogillo unservice ticket is I want a service ticket, okay. So this is my TGT and get me the TGS, okay. By serving TGT, Alice is proving his identity. By serving TGT, Alice is proving his identity as a genuine person, and now Alice wants a ticket granting server, ticket granting service, okay, using which he can communicate with Bob, okay. So once TGS will be confirming the identity of the Alice, okay, once this TGS confirm the identity of the Alice, he will be he will be processing the TGS, Echo L service ticket. Now what do you mean by that? Here is service ticket, okay. So TGS will be providing TGS to Alice, right? Now Alice got TGS. Now using that TGS, Alice can easily communicate with Bob, okay. So what is the message? Authenticami who service ticket means authenticated. Now I am the Alice and I prove my identity and I have the service ticket, okay. I have the service ticket, and now we can talk in the secure channel, okay, or you can service to my request, okay. So then in response of Bob, when Alice send a TGS, obviously the TGS will be generated by the trusted party. So this Bob can Bob can believe on Alice's message and Alice's identity, and then what Bob can reply back is, here Alice, parliamo, means hello Alice, we can now speak, on the secure channel, or I'm ready to service for your all request, okay. That's how Bob can send it to Alice, okay. So that's how the communication goes. Between these two people, okay, and through KDC will help them in proving their identity with each other, okay. So in the entire process, we will come across these keywords like AS is authentication server, SS is a service server, TGS is ticket granting server, and TGT is ticket granting ticket, okay. So please remember these notations: TGT, TGS, SS service server, and AS authentication server, okay. Now user client based logon. Now we will try to understand the process again. A user client, which is Alice, sends the user identity to AS. Now what is AS? AS is the authentication server at KDC, okay. When the user log on, when the moment user logged into his machine, a user sends his identity to the authentication server to get the TGT, okay. Now user is requesting TGT to the KDC, okay. So in KDC again we have AS. Now what AS do? What authentication server do? Authentication server verify that the user is authorized, okay, as AS has all passwords maintained with it. So AS generates a secret key KA by hashing the passwords of the user found in the database, okay. The user found in the database means authentication server, it has the private key of the user who is requesting for TGT, okay. So using that particular private key, using the private key of the requested user, AS will generate TGT and encrypting using KA, okay, encrypting using KA. Now client's authentication, AS sends back to the client a message encrypted with KA. What is KA? Secret key of the respective client, okay. Now that containing, now in response from AS, okay. So what is that response contain? What is that message contain? A message contain a KS, okay, for use of communication with the ticket granting server, okay. If you remember again the previous diagram, first message has been Alice to AS, then AS will send a TGT to the Alice. Now using that TGT, Alice is requesting for TGS, okay. Alice is requesting for TGS, right? Now that's how it is. KS for use communication with the TGS server, okay, and KTGS, it is ticket granting services private key. Ticket granting service private key, which includes what? It includes a session key along with the sender's identity A, okay. Ticket granting ticket, which includes the client's ID and the ticket granting server's session key KS encrypted with a private key of TGS, a private key of ticket granting server, and shared between, and private key of ticket granting server is only shared between those two logical parts of KDC. Okay, the private key of ticket granting server, it is shared only between the two logical parts of KDC, which is AS and TGS himself. Okay, nobody else knows the private key of ticket granting server, right? That's how the authentication has been maintained and achieved, okay, in KDC. When the message from AS has been received, the Alice client asks Alice the password. The password used to generate KA. If KA, the message can be decrypted, then the user is authenticated by AS. Okay. If the user is able to decrypt it, the user is able to decrypt the message which he got by AS, then Alice can proving himself as the genuine person. Okay. So Alice obtained KS by decrypting the particular message which he got from AS. It is able to get KS and the ticket granting ticket, that is TGT. Okay. By decrypting the message from authentication server to client, okay, so Alice is now able to get the KS, session key, as well as TGT. Okay, so TGT Alice cannot open. The TGT Alice cannot open. Why? Because TGT has been encrypted using private key of TGS. TGT, it has been encrypted using private key of TGS. That's why this TGT, it cannot be opened by the Alice. Right now, the client deletes the Alice's password. The client is Alice himself. Okay, once he decrypts the message from the authentication server, he deletes its password, the secret password. Okay, so the password is present in the client only in few milliseconds. Okay, password is no longer available in the client machine. Okay, why? Because all the password maintained securely in the central database, in the authentication server database. Okay, that's why the passwords is not maintained at the client machine. Okay, as see here, note the passwords are stored at the Kerberos server, not at the client. Okay, and that password did not have did not have to be passed across the network. Even it is in encrypted form, it is not required because Kerberos is taking care of all the password management. So that's the beauty of this Kerberos. Okay, next, once the client receives the message, it decrypts the message to obtain KS and TGS session key. This session key is used for further communication with TGS. Okay, so this will be seen. Okay, now client service authorization. Now this is a message between client and TGS. Okay, when the requesting services, the client sends the following two messages to TGS. Okay, what is the message? Message C and message D. So these two messages will be sent by client. Okay, composed of TGT, the same TGT which it got from AS, which it got from authentication server, and the ID of the requested server, Bob. Okay, so now I want this service. I want to communicate with Bob. Okay, so that ID will be adding in the message C. Okay, now who is sending message C? Message C is sending by Alice. Okay, and in that message, what are the things he is added? He is adding the TGT in request of TGS. Okay, and the identity of the Bob or the server. Okay, Bob. Then message D. Message D is the authenticator. Client, even message is generated by the client, and what client is doing? Client is creating authenticator in which the client is trying to prove his identity. Okay, which is composed of the client ID and the timestamp. Okay, so in authenticator, client is putting his details in the form of ID and timestamp to identify the unique transaction. Okay, encrypted using again a TGS session key. Okay, in the earlier response, it got a session key. Okay, so he is encrypting using the session key and adding the information of himself and the timestamp. Right? Upon receiving the messages C and D, okay, the TGS retrieves A and KS. Okay, as TGS knows his private key, so he can easily decrypt it. And once TGS decrypt the message, he comes to know that a session key and sender's details, that is A. Okay, it decrypts. It gives KS. Okay, using this key, TGS decrypt the message. Okay, now using a KS. Okay, once TGS decrypt this, TGS will come to know about KS. Using that KS, TGS will decrypt the authenticator. Why? Because authenticator has been encrypted using KS only. Okay, authenticator has been encrypted using KS. So TGS will know KS with respect to this message, and TGS will use KS to decrypt authenticator, and hence it comes to know about the identity of the particular user A. Okay, identity of the particular user. Okay. Then TGS will send the following two messages to the client. In response to the client request, TGS will send a response back in the form of two messages E and F. And what are those contained? Client to service ticket. Okay, that is the TGS, which includes client ID and a key which has to be shared between A, Alice and Bob, and a session key, client server session key. Okay, and the entire thing is encrypted using KB, okay, which is server secret key. KB is a server secret key, okay, which is even not known to Alice himself. Okay, and this has been done only by KDC, that is the TGS, ticket granting server. Okay, so what the TGS contain? TGS contain the client ID, which is A, okay, and the session key, which is between A and B, which is used to be between A and B, and client to server session key. Okay, that all together has been encrypted using server's private key, so that only server can open it. Okay, and other message F is for the client. Okay, so what is that? It includes KAB, which is a key between Alice and Bob, and client server session key encrypted using KS. Okay, so client knows the KS already. Client, which is Alice knows the KS, so Alice can easily decrypt this message F. Okay, whereas message E cannot be decrypted by Alice. Only message F can be decrypted by Alice. Okay, so TGS, in response to its request, TGS is sending two messages, message E and message F, whereas message E for the server and message F for the Alice himself, right? Okay, now client service request. Upon receiving message E and F from TGS, the client has enough information to authenticate itself to the Bob. Okay, now client Alice can easily prove his authentication to Bob by sending the TGS. Okay, because in the TGS it is encrypted. TGS is encrypted using private key of the server, and in that particular ticket, Alice's details have been hidden. Okay, so Alice can easily prove his identity by sending a TGS, which has been come from the authenticated source. Okay, the client connects SS server and sends the following two messages E and F. Okay, so from previous step, client server ticket encrypted by KB. Okay, so that server come to know about the user's identity, sender's identity, and message G, a new authenticator. Okay, even along with that message, client will send a authenticator again to compare his detail with the TGS, which includes his ID, timestamp, okay, and a new session key which he got from TGS KAB. Right now, Bob decrypts the ticket TGS using his own private key to retrieve that session key. Okay, using that session key, Bob will decrypt the authenticator and compare the details. Compare the details of authenticator as well as TGS, and Bob come to know that the details found in TGS and authenticators are same, so he can believe a client, so that he can believe Alice. Okay, Alice as a genuine person. Okay, once you do that, so Alice, so that Bob will now can believe Alice, and he can service to its request. Okay, so that's how it goes. That's how the communication between Alice and Bob happened, being the third role of TGS, or making the use of TGS and AS, which is a part of KDC, trusted third party. So that's how this this Kerberos work. In the textbook, we have the same process in the form of some steps. Okay, so let me show you that. Until then, if you have any questions, any clarification, you feel free to ask me. Give me a second. Okay, now as you can see here, white band again.